Hello and welcome back to another episode of Supercoach Insider. My name is Ben.
I'm Swizz.
And thank you for joining us. Round 18. It's going to be a lovely, lovely round coming up. Swizz, thank you for joining us. Chris should be on momentarily, ladies and gentlemen, but we are doing it live just because at this part of the season, it's great to kind of get that interaction, get those questions, and looking at more of the specific issues that people are having. I mean, you never know what's out there. I mean, Swizz has just had someone hitting him up saying he has Impy in his team of all things, limping his way, Impy the whole way to the finish line. But that is us, SC Insider 100. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Also, all the audio platforms as well, Spotify, SoundCloud, Stitcher, you name it. And on YouTube, search for us, Supercoach Insider. Like, subscribe, get amongst it. And you're in for the live, the battling. And Swizz, I've got to get your opinion here, mate, because as a Richmond supporter, number one, Nane Curvis. So, Paddy Dangerfield, sniper, grand final, what a dog. Stewart goes past the ball, absolute flog, took him out. Nane Curvis, that's just how he plays football.
Yeah. What's the question?
As bad as the Collingwood supporters.
I had, like, not to plug other podcasts, whatever. I had this long chat about this on our on Fancast AFL the other day because we talked about, should there be what's the other, not about the other option for Nane Curvis, but there's got to be other punishments which will stop players doing this and that. And there's currently on the AFL rules, like players are willing to still run the risk of this. Not that players want to miss 2 or 3 weeks, but that was a game changer. Definitely Lloyd going off completely changed the game. So are we really worried about Nate missing 3 weeks because of the help us get the 4 points there? There needs to be worse repercussions for players. And we went through all the different pros and cons of it. Is it a sin bin? Is it a sin bin, but you still keep 18 off? Is it a 10-minute like sin bin? Is it larger fines, which the players will never agree to, or the player association will? So for the ones like this, there probably does need to be bigger consequences. It's no different like in society. Like we talk about the major crimes. We talk about the major crimes out there, like murder, rape, or you can go into a few of them.
This is Supercoach.
No, I know, but you know what I mean. But like they're the major crimes, and we don't want people even considering doing that. So what are the punishments for that? It's like, and that's why some countries have the death penalty for that, because they're like, well, that's the way to stop it. And it's not trying to make this long bow to it, but it's like you think about Barry Hall, what Gaff did. They cop like now Gaff in the end of the day gets punished for not winning a premiership, but not other players will be in those situations. So it is doing an act like that, and sometimes these are just spur of the moment stuff, but how do you actually take this out? So every player will sit there and go, there's no way I'll do that. And there's going to be some sort of punishment attached where players think, no, I could never in any world consider doing something like that. But
I think it's a sliding scale. So for me, the concern I have is at the moment, even with the dangerous tackles, you see people kind of flaunting it. Now, as much of it is a deterrent or an advantage to, if someone gets sent off, for instance, like that's a huge issue, right? So if you've knocked someone out or they're out and they're knocked out or whatever, I guess it has to be really significant. So my only concern is the human element, because how many times you watch it back, kind of like the innocent until proven guilty. Mm-hmm. Was it a fair act? Was it in play? Was it part of footy, or was it a dog act? Let's put it that way. So it is open to interpretation, which is why the tribunal kind of goes through it and they sit at length and analyze it in slow motion, all of the factors into one, and then come up with your decision. But however, I don't mind it is in if it looks so clear cut past the footy, not a footy act where someone has been concussed or knocked out or punched in the face or whatever, sin bin, sent off, and then even if they're gone out of the game, hit the tribunal. If it's a 4-match ban, then the match that they've just sat out should count as one of them.
Yep. Yeah.
Possibly.
The only thing, and this is what I raised the other day. Now, in these cases, we've talked about like Stewart and like you could say DeGoey, Barry Hall, Nane Curvis, they're all influential players for their teams. But so it's a bit different if they get subbed off at the same time for taking out a well-known player for the opposition. But what happens if it's like that 22nd player who's barely on the list, or the VFL player that's come in for one game and then they do it? Like again, the opposition, or the team that's had that act happen, and we always feel like this is going to happen one grand final day. So they get red carded. who care? Like, they're not going to care because it's like that player has very minimal impact for them anyway. That's where I was sort of saying the other night, is it as maybe a case of goes to a bunker reviews it, 5 minutes later, that player gets, say, sin bin for 5-10 minutes where it is 17 versus 18, and then the 18th comes on, but that player then gets subbed out for the rest of the game. But you could argue this every way to Sunday, and everyone's going to have a different opinion on it. There's plenty of people, you go on Twitter, plenty of people thinking Nankervis get nothing as well. Now saying plenty of people, that might be 5-10%, because
I've got to say, I don't trust the AFL to make those rules either.
And that's the hard thing as well, because we've seen how bad some of the officialing can be on, and we even see it in like cricket, like third umpire's decision, and it goes to that, and we could be arguing for 2 weeks over a decision that they've made by trial by video.
Even just the legislation, I don't trust the AFL to actually write it up. Like, the subvest and everything else that they've killed, and all the rule changes upon rule changes, and then people just tweak it anyway. So look, we are getting carried away. We're kind of waiting on the Serong train at the moment, so there's a little bit coming undone. So at the moment it's deliberating, so we're waiting on news for that. Huge news out of today. It looks like the sun has set on due. I actually put in there like overdue, paid in full, like is in, yeah. So that's Stuart Dew's sacked. Dimmer's probably going to go to the Gold Coast, take Dusty Martin with him for some professionalism. It's a very, very, very interesting space to watch that one unfold. And look, it's been a lot happening. So Lloyd got knocked out. Nankervis is suspended for 3. Dunkley missed a week, possibly another, so we're waiting on that train. So
I believe he's missing another week.
Has he officially been ruled out, or it just said he's unlikely?
Well, I thought that was out by the sound of things.
Oh, the sound of it, they said they weren't going to risk him. So
yeah,
but I haven't heard anything out.
Didn't Brisbane put up also on their site that Dunkley's 1 more week? No, I was just looking up the updated injury lists.
Usually injuries
Dunkley 1 week. Yeah.
Oh, then as far as the update?
Updated today, 11th of July, Brisbane, Dunkley half 1 week.
Okay, but yeah, still could change.
I could, but with the game on Friday, and you'd think they would travel on Thursday, that's a lot to change in 2 days.
Where are they playing this week?
MCG on Friday night.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I feel like if it was the Gabba on Sunday, he probably would.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tight
Friday
call there.
Night, yeah, and especially where you play. You play Geelong next week at home on a Saturday.
Yeah, that's a must-win game as well. So it's going to be a hard one.
I think they probably rest Dunkley. No different to Jeremy Cameron. Got rested that extra week against North, and no disrespect to North, but I think they had bigger fish to fry there, and they're like, well, we'll get the 4 points. Jezza, you have another week on the side. It's true. It's like we can sit there and try to soften the blow for opposition, but North supporters know where they're at. There'll be no, and I know it's a must win this week for the Lions, but at the same time,
it's not must win for the Lions.
It's not a must win because they do have actually a gap, but they probably want to make sure of the home game against Geelong more than they.
And I think in a 50-50 game at the MCG, you might as well just let him rest it. If he's not ready, he's not ready, and then wait for that one.
All right.
Yeah, speaking of wet weather, we are waiting for Chris to come in any time now. But the main issues for this week is, if you're missing a Dunkley or you're missing a Lloyd, are you better off having cover, or are you better off spending trades, which is pretty much the main part of it. So we're going to look at a couple different scenarios for that. This is one that's currently up here at the moment. So, do you trade Dunkley? Trade Drunkley. If you have 2 trades, if Sheldrick doesn't play and say Marek has cover, etc., I think, I'd rather have a trade up your sleeve. So if you're trying to cover for let's say a donut. Now, Marek, at least if he's playing, you could always see, hopefully, if he gets that score first, right? If he does get the score first, then you can actually sit and let that one happen. Oh, Chris coming in with the noise. Jeez.
Yeah. My thoughts on that, Sheldrick will know a Wednesday night. B, he plays on Thursday night. So we've got the case of you even know how he scores. So if he scores 60 plus, it's not even worth probably using that trade.
No, you might as well save it, because a donut later, especially if you're using 2 trades to make that move, then that could hurt you later. So saving 1 donut now could cost you 3 donuts later or 4 donuts later. You just don't know. Even
30 or 40, it's still a score. That maybe if Sheldrick came out and was scored a 10, that's who gets 10 points? But if anything else, he's fine. And you've got the option there with Dunkley on the Friday night. You can play Sheldrick into Marriage. I just did my team review before, and I said, well, Dunkley out just means I have the ability to have Darcy Cameron there. I've swapped Dunkley around with Bennett, who's my loophole player, who was sitting in my midfield. Bennett plays on the Sunday, so I can go Darcy Cameron into Marriage. Now, Darcy Cameron in 99% of games is going to outscore Marriage. But just in case there was an injury, something happens, you never know. Anything can happen on a footy field. So if Darcy
kicks
Cameron was
5 goals or something, who was that Hawks guy that Chris was like, "You're kidding me? How has he actually done well for once?"
Yeah,
Cozzy.
Who was that guy? Cozzy Pickett. Yeah, Cozzy. No, not Cozzy Pickett. Cozzy.
No, Kaczynski.
Kaczynski.
Yeah.
Last year. So if, for example, if Darcy for whatever reason got an early injury in the first quarter, was subbed out, I've still got the ability to loophole Darcy Cameron into a Marriage playing at home against the Tigers. There's the ability for him to score a 50 or 60. So it's just that backup. So yeah, I'd loophole Sheldrick into Marriage, and I wouldn't be trying to trade down Dunkley there, mate.
And Chris, welcome to the stream.
Hey, Chris.
How are we?
Hey, lads. Pretty good. I'm enjoying my first beer in 8 weeks, so that's good.
Congratulations.
I'm feeling a lot better. So last week, obviously, the whole house was struck down with sickness, and as people who had joined into the last week sort of quick fire pod that we did for 20 minutes. Today's the first day I really feel better. Like yesterday, I still felt like shit. But apparently, when you're like this sort of viral infection, like bad, it can take weeks for you to really get back to normal. So I'm not looking forward to that. But I'm here, and I had a pretty average week. So I'm trying to now make up for the rest of the year. So we'll see how we go. But I'm still ranked 1300, so I suppose I can still fall on that one, as opposed to how's your team going there, Ben?
Wow.
Look, scoring all right, but hey, I honestly need a lot of carnage for me to make a lot of ground, I think, because I've got 23 players, soon to be 24 premiums, but with an extra trade up my sleeve. So I don't know. I'm hoping for a little bit of anarchy, but not too much to kind of really tip me over. But I know there's a lot of people hanging by a thread, and outside of I'll probably have Ridley maybe missing, but he's not that highly owned. I've got Gawn Spudding, who's not highly owned either. But the
antipod's not working for you.
No.
So my big thing is obviously, so I took the 0 last week with Dunkley out. So I had the opportunity. I was going to trade in Flanders, which would have been another, I think he was 96, 97 points there. The old Redbreast buddy, get into it.
Yeah, the bottle's green though. So there's look at that, the green screen. Cast strength too. This one's got a nice, put hairs on my chest here, 56%.
Nice. Yeah, the only thing with Flanders is now, so on the weekend, I was like, I can probably still get to Flanders if I really wanted to this week, because he's now got a 3-round average, I think 105 or something silly. Like, there's a couple of things with that. First and foremost, does his role maintain now that Jew is no longer coach, with him playing freaking Tuke Miller at half forward? So, like, that was a bit of a Hail Mary.
Tuke at half forward?
Like, look, he played well. Like, didn't he have 20, kick a goal, and have 7 tackles or something? It's like, not bad. I mean, it's the best Ben Keys impression I've ever seen. So, what happens with Flanders? Does that role change? So, therefore, if I did trade him, I could be in a whole bunch of hot water anyway. And now I definitely can't trade into him regardless, because Johnson was subbed out on 30. And so his price tanked, which meant I think I'm out like 10K to get Flanders from Johnson anyway. So now it's.
Did you see the footage
Georgie
of Johnson?
Hewitt, buddy, let's go. Sorry.
Did you see the footage of Johnson? They had his number up to come off, and he was on the far side of the ground and just stayed on the far side of the ground, just trying to buy him. He's like, no, like, I know why my number's up. Like, I'm not getting subbed off.
Me. That ain't me.
But we do need to get into some of those options. But going forward here, so we do have, so Brax has said, 22 premiums and 2 trades left. Or would you go 23 premiums and 0 trades? Boys, which one are you going, A or B?
I think
George
posted this on Twitter earlier today.
They're not alone. He's not alone, because also Catter as well. Catter's the exact same thing as well.
So depends. I think the answer is it depends on your cover, right, Swizz? Like, if you've got decent bench cover, like say you've got Seamus Mitchell at D7 and Johnson at M9, and I don't know, some sort of forward that's even playing, then great. I think that you probably don't need to drop down to 0 trades to get the extra. But if you are riding 0 playing rookies bench and Marich in your forward line, I'd probably opt towards getting an extra player to get at least some kind of cover. So, I mean, everyone's different in their view, but that's pretty much where I stand is based on what your current cover currently is.
And I think you can afford to wait, to be honest, though, too, because it's not the be-all and end-all. I mean, Jeremy Cameron's probably going to get to low 300s. You've got Hewitt could drop a little bit more as well. I mean, if Essendon have an injury, I mean, Swizz was talking about Dylan Shields could get down to like 220K if there's a big injury at Essendon.
So I had my team pod before. I know you shake your head, Chris, but depending on people's cash, I said this, if like, let's just say Parrish or Merritt went down, touch wood, that doesn't happen. But if one of them went down and they're playing North Melbourne, West Coast, Sydney in 3 weeks in a row, like Dylan Shield at M9, the guy scored hundreds before.
I hope not, because surely this is the writing on the wall for Dylan Shield.
Oh, it is. And you talk to Essendon fans, because I was naturally there at the game, and the fans around me, because I like to get their opinions, and most of them are like, "This is surely him. See you later. You're leaving and trying to find other places, or you're just hanging up the boots." And this is what their thoughts are. However, at the same time, he could be just that, because they're in contention. And I know that like the younger kids are doing a great job, Hobbs and Perkins. But if it was to be a Merritt or Parrish, he's probably the first one back in. And at 220K, it's an absolute bargain.
But does he want to be that? Is what I
long term, probably not. And that's come the end of the season, it's a different story. But for the now, and with the draw that they have coming up, so I was running through different options depending on what sort of cash you have. So if that was a potential, and if you didn't have much cash, I know Brax, we don't know exactly how many cash, because my natural thought for you would be, I'd want to hold at least one trade. So is there a way that you could get a 23rd with a lesser, let's not say premium, but some sort of other cover? That's where Chris was saying, if Flanders, if it wasn't the coaching change, was it Flanders? I'm pretty big on George Hewitt with Kennedy out, but I'd be waiting a week. I want to see 1 week of his role, because he's still going to drop cash. So he could get anywhere between 235 and 250, 260K. So that's potential there. And as Ben said, it depends on what cover you have at the moment. Do you have Sheldrick or Robertson? Some people, have got
2 weeks is a long time in footy as well. Like 100%, especially if there's options that still might be there and cheaper, unless you're missing Dunkley or Ridley or Lloyd, where you have no cover and it's either I trade them out or I get cover. Then I would say, okay, well, then get cover because it's short term. But otherwise,
it depends what sort of premium he's saying. Because I know some people are saying to me, I want to trade Sheasel as that person. Well, Sheasel can still get you Mills, Sard, Himmelberg. And it depends on, like we look at those guys as premiums or potential premiums, because they have done it before. So you can potentially, depending who you're trading out, get one of them into your team. And I know you just had up Corey's question about Constable. I think this is the funny thing about it.
Hopeful.
Yeah, we've been wanting him all year. I don't actually need him now. I want him right. Because I need him as the donut player. He's my loophole guy. So it actually makes me around. And I can see it happening. He's going to be first back in. It's going to muck up my loopholes.
It's the person that wants you, and you're like, you can't have me now. Like, it's too late. I've moved on.
Now.
I've moved on. I've made my team without your cash.
And thanks, Fozzie, for listening in from work. What do you do there, buddy? But hopefully we're keeping your shift going well, mate.
I love.
What actually sucks this week is that unfortunately, I don't think I can loop. Like, my loops are going to work this week. So GWS plays late, so Himmelberg you can't really loop. But who are you going to loop him with? Because if I've got Keys or Cameron, I suppose maybe Darcy Cameron I could do potentially on the from
so
the
that, and game. That's why I went out and got Bennett as the 102 guy, because Hawthorn play so many late games for my forward mid.
I can do
swap. So Dunkley, so I've got loopholes everywhere of that, and those are watch my team discussion.
Well, my forward donut is Jack Buller, so like he plays the first game,
which is annoying. So because I've got because I was sitting there going, okay, I've got Roberts, and because the Swans some weeks play Thursday nights, I need somebody to offset that, and Bennett was the best one, because I think there's only 1 week where they kind of both play on a Saturday, but nearly every other week one plays early, one plays late, so there's always one mid forward. I just need either one of Chesser or Constable not to play, and I'm very worried about Constable now.
I hate how many early games Sydney's had. Like, talk about killing you. Roberts. Every week I see Roberts, I'm like, yeah, Roberts, the loophole that's never been a loophole because they play so early. Fozzie forklift driving. Hey, Foz, I've actually got my forklift license, mate. It's probably going to expire soon. Chris would know that.
Love
I
it,
think
mate.
you were
I
there
do,
around that
yep.
time. The old
Good work, Foz.
forklifting, low stuff
Lukey
though.
said there. If you have 2,
So I suppose this is a
or
question I want to
3
pose
from
to you
the
guys because
outfield.
this is a predicament I'm in for my team. Is that I do have the one trade left.
Yep,
All
same.
things considered, I should have everyone back except potentially Dunkley, depending on what happens with Dunkley this week, of course. And do I just go? Well, I've got the money to get Hewitt, get him now because he could pop a score this week. And if he does pop a score, I can loop him on field for say a Tom Green late. Like if he goes 110, I'd take that easily over whatever Tom Green's going to dish up versus Adelaide, right? So I could potentially do that this week with a hope of grabbing that, or I could hold the trade for a little bit longer because of his price. I can pick him up in 2 weeks and hope that I just don't have a long-term injury in that time, or at least then I've got the cover if I do get LTI. What do you think is the best bet to try and get maximum points? Is it get Hewitt now for that extra loop ability now, or is it wait as long as you can until you potentially can't get him anymore and then jump on board?
Yeah, if marriage was to come out and score a, like I think what I need is say Hewitt gets, I think it might be 30 and marriage 63, and then whatever happens from there. So every point Hewitt scores, marriage has got to score a point to offset it. So if I could potentially go Hewitt to marriage next week, I would do it. If I can't get that trade done, then I'm just going to hold the extra trade because, as you said, what are we round
so
18? So we've got 6 weeks.
You've got one trade left, do you, as well?
I've got one trade left as well.
Okay,
but
so
that
you're
would
in the same boat as me.
But Hewitt would be the 25th player on my bench.
Okay, so he would be my 24th, yeah.
4th. So I think in your stage you can probably do it as well because we do have enough cover. But in a perfect world, I would rather do that trade with 4 weeks to go. Because I feel like 4 weeks, you're going into that round already, so you're probably only covering 3 weeks there for a long-term injury. It's not as bad. Yep. But right now, I'm feeling like it's nearly 2 months. It's a lot of footy.
Again,
to go.
2 weeks is a long time in footy. Imagine a couple of weeks ago, people would have been like, "Oh, I've got no trades." The next minute, Dunkley gone. Right now, Ridley knee bruising. Lloyd knocked out, and all of a sudden you're going, "Oh, I've actually got 3 or 4 issues now," and you've got 0 trades. So that's where maybe it is best to just wait a couple of weeks, not get too trigger happy. Chris, nice of you to throw out a question about yourself when we had a question about somebody else up there.
Yeah, I'm not here to give advice. You saw
Dusty there, and you just
advice.
No,
you saw Dusty in there, and you're like, "Nah, stuff it. Easy question."
Now till the end of the season, I know you'd go Keys or that. I brought up Dusty on the pod only just because of the price, and it looks like McWalter's playing him around the ball, so it's not a terrible. I probably trust him more than Sheasel at the moment because I feel like Sheasel at some point is going to get rested, but they've got such a nice draw over the next 3 weeks. So I was saying, people who are trading out Sheasel, is the player you're bringing in actually going to score that much better than him over the next 3 weeks? Because they've got a pretty good draw. So there's no reason why Sheasel couldn't go minimum 80 around that mark. And if you're bringing in, say, if it was Sard or Said or Mills or that, I feel like Mills still probably goes 100. Himmelberg probably goes 100, but it's only really for wasting that trade, especially if you've only got one trade left. To get 20 points a week, is it really worth it? Just choose a better captain option.
That 120 points easily made up elsewhere, and that 120 points disappears with one donut.
You've got the GOAT Daicos, future Brownlow medalist sitting there every week for a VC at this point. So I think
I've actually got the VC on him at the moment.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think you can take it off him right now. He's paying too good.
It's hard. It's hard to.
Chris had the better VC until my C overtook him.
You're the only person I like, Chris.
Enjoy your 3 points, buddy.
Chris, you know the only person I like better for VC this week?
Who?
Luke Ryan.
Fuck Luke Ryan.
Well, Cox is out too. Cox is out.
Lock in they're going to lose. So he's guaranteed to go 125.
He's going 160, mate.
He's going probably in.
Chris, you should probably explain the logic.
Don't have a forward line. He's going to monster Mason Cox. He's going to zone off him all day.
Luke Ryan is averaging 22 points per game, more in losses than wins. That is just like he should just be like, don't give me the ball because then we'll win. Because I just don't understand this method of football of just long bombing down the line to try and, which is great for points in Supercoach.
Yeah, he cleans up intercepts.
That's all he does.
And for the viewers at home, Chris and I have had some great banter of Houston versus Ryan, and I know Grimo's been involved in a bit of this as well. And I was so devo about not going Houston, and then when he hit that winning goal, but that 18K was the difference. Went Ryan, and then Chris was all up and about the week before.
I was so up and about.
Absolutely cherry picked Carlton, and I did say this: it's like he's playing Carlton this week, and defenders usually go pretty well against the Blues. And what happened? The Blues absolutely dominated Freo more than we could ever imagine. And Ryan just had a field day.
They played Walsh in his proper position.
Well, that's amazing what happens when they play people in their position.
Gordon and Walsh killed me, even in draft leagues, like literally by a hair, and they just can't do it. Shout out to Dr. Supercoach actually watching the stream. Chris not wearing the merch tonight, and they show up on the comments.
I'll grab my hat.
Tip of the cap,
that'll
like so.
Tip of the cap, like so. Hey, Chizo, how's it going, buddy?
Hey, Chizo.
Yeah, so 25 players on the bench.
Yeah.
Did you actually say that, Swizz?
No, not on the bench. Sorry, mate. A 25-player premium player, if you want to count Hewitt as a premium.
But he's had the mainframe, bit of Matrix.
Well,
Matrix.
I mean, Hewitt was averaging
25 on the bench.
Hewitt was averaging 87, which isn't obviously amazing, but he was averaging 87 over the first, 10 rounds of footy before he started being the sub every week. He only had one big score in that, though. I think we're 120 plus. So last year he was the highest CBA mid at the Blues. He was the most consistent scorer, and he averaged 111. He averaged more than Cripps last year. So one thing I need to understand about Hewitt before I confirm this trade is, okay, so what's changed in his role? So I need to have a look at his CBA numbers. Is he injured like he always is? Is that an issue? Is that why he's the sub? Is it because they're trying to get?
They're saving him for finals. The finals tilt. They're keeping him fresh for the finals.
Which could be legit because he's one of their most important players in my opinion, and he's probably the only really lockdown mid that they have there outside of Kerno, which they shouldn't be playing in their best 22, to be completely honest. So I like him in midfield in their mix. I think
it's the only good thing that the sub has brought us. We kind of factored in like, job security or they'll kill their cash generation like Johnson, or you have to pick them up 3rd or 4th round in on like a fake rookie. We didn't actually factor in the fact that these people might be subs like Dylan Shield and Hewitt that all of a sudden with an injury might have a good run. So Kennedy, surgery out for 6 weeks?
6 weeks.
Yeah. So
there's 7 rounds left, right? How many rounds is there left? 7?
Pretty well takes you
so
up
comes
to
back
nearly finals.
24.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, if I'm missing Ridley and I'm missing Dunkley, then for me, I might go, well, Hewitt from West Coast, I was kind of saving the money I had and him to try and get to a Jezza Cameron in 2 weeks. But if it means playing Hewitt or playing, or Hewitt, hey, there you go. West Coast Hewitt or Carlton Hewitt. Am I going the fake primo or the wannabe? So, yeah, it's an interesting scenario. Same question here is, Crazy Frogs, some people have had either bad luck or bad trading or bad planning or whatever, or just luck. Let's say Crazy Frogs with luck. If you have an Ashcroft at M8 and you have 2 trades left, it's about 460K. Are you trying to sideways it in one, or you're holding on to him at this point? What do you reckon?
So I would hold because he's in form.
Yeah.
Just come off a 140. Look, I had said this to us in our group chat over the weekend. Is Ashcroft going to Daicos us? And by that, I mean, last year, Daicos, we all traded him out at the buy, and then he came in, did 112 post buy or whatever it might be. And I was killing myself because I traded him to Tom Stewart, who then missed, went 160 and out for 4 weeks, and then came back and was tagged the rest of the season. It was a worst trade of the year, and I had some doozies last year. I think you can potentially hold him and wait for that poor game. And then with his break even the way it is now, I'm sure that you can probably at least get a little bit more cash out of him while you wait.
In a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Give him
a week or two and he'll...
Tuke Miller is just, obviously, he's just got to had a drop. So there's a potential that you could sideways him, in a couple of weeks to Tuke Miller, depending on what the scores are in the following week. So, I would. That's my potential. That's what I would do.
Yeah, and just be grateful you're not like OS Pod that traded in Bailey Smith 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was actually going to answer about Bailey Smith, but Tuke, I was celebrating because Dewey was going to play him forward for the rest of the year, and we're going to pick up a F1, F2 with Tuke and Walshy if Vossi didn't screw us around. So, but that might change now under Kingy because we've seen what McQualter's done and gone and play your players back in the proper positions, and you would think they would probably do the same thing. And then just quickly on the Bailey Smith one. Yeah, like obviously there might be stuff going on that we don't know about, and if it's not injury or personal stuff for that, but by all reports, it seems like he could be one out the door come the end of the year. It's just he's not getting the role. Beveridge said he's down the pecking order, doesn't play, and he's like we've seen how good he is in the midfield.
Like so they're not training.
I don't.
No chance. No chance. But I think what happens is at the end of the season they have a big talk and someone goes out the door, but it's not him. Like they need to move on. Like someone because what Libba and.
Well, you're not moving Libba and Bont out of that midfield.
No. But Libba's over the 30.
Of course, 100%. So that's the last thing they do.
But it's like Viney. It's the only position he can play. You don't try and push him forward.
But
if he's Libba would have currency in a premiership tilt team.
Oh yeah, but Libba's not.
You could get.
I don't see Libba going anywhere. Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's that, but I mean,
and it depends on the relationship with the coach as well.
Football clubs, look, I agree, and I'm not saying that Libba's a bad player or that he can't play out a year, but I am saying that he's got currency, but he's on the back end of his career, and I would much rather keep Bailey Smith than keep Libba, for the long term projection. And you'll be able to get something back.
We've just watched Dunkley walk out of the Dogs because pretty well his relationship with Bev. Like
he wanted to go for ages because the role they wouldn't give him the role. And if it's going to be the same thing with Bailey Smith, the same thing will happen.
That's what I'm saying. If they're not going to give him the role, Bailey Smith's not going to stick around and wait for it.
Yeah.
Boys, you don't have to over talk each other. There's plenty of time for both of you to be wrong. I mean, I would agree with you, but there's no point in all three of us being wrong. So there you go.
So guys, so Tuke Miller 556 with a 186 break even, obviously going to drop. Again, he's projected to lose another 40k with a 97. So he could be down at say 515, 520k after this week. He's one that to absolutely watch. And if
especially
I
for
bring up
leagues,
Ashcroft, absolutely.
If you're trying to win leagues and stuff like that, no one in your league will probably have him. So if you have trades up your sleeve and some of your opponents or the people in your leagues, etc., don't have him, he could be a really big point of difference coming home for like the last 5-6 rounds. Could be very, very valuable.
So Ashcroft's break-evens dropped to 3. That's 3 total. So with a projected score of 104 this week. Are they playing at the Gabba?
Number 3, my lord. Brisbane
Melbourne.
MCG and then Gabba against Geelong.
Because he's probably more like a 70-80 score
couple
this
hard
week.
Games, but
yeah, so I mean, he's projected to go up 45 with a score of 104. So if he manages to ton, he's going to go up to just over 500k, and it'll be 10k to go to Tuke with the right outcomes. So yeah, definitely holding this week, and that's the move that I'd be looking at doing there. It was Crazy Frogs, wasn't it?
Yeah. And same thing, West Coast rules. The difference is Daicos can play in every state and get Brownlow votes in every state. Massive shoe in it. The only one rivaling Daicos for me is probably Bont and Pelly, but the Dogs have so many vote takers, like English, Libba, whoever else can steal votes here and there, whereas Daicos has the goey.
So the thing that I've noticed with Daicos, and he has 3 vote potential, hardcore, right? So when he plays well, it's so clear that he's best on ground, and it's ridiculous. Like you can notice him from a mile away, and so that's the most important thing in terms of getting 3 votes. I don't see there's a few games there where he may have got like 25, 30 touches, didn't have much impact on the game. And I don't think in those games he's going to poll votes. But I think when he does, he polls 3s, not 2s and 1s. And that's, I think, the difference going to be on Brownlow Medal Night. I think he's just going to be so far ahead because it's so many dominant, absolutely ball-dominant games from Daicos. And he just does the flashy things that get noticed. Like the stupid handball over the head to oncoming runner that goes to a goal assist. Like, I don't. If I was a player, I'd be looking at that, going like, "What do I do here? Like, I don't know how to play this. Like, it's ridiculous." He's been an amazing watch, and I think anyone that watches football has watched this season and gone, "That is impressive." So
his work rate's ridiculous, and again, just the ability to hit the scoreboard. and in his second year. So it's like a Gary Ablett where you just clean with the ball, but also you just do freakish stuff. And his work rate though, I think is probably undersold. And that's why he's able to get scored. But I mean, I don't know if you saw some of the footage playback, but he pretty much worked super hard from the halfback flank and then ran straight past Caleb Daniel. And then once the ball kind of got punched back in, Caleb Daniel's like, oh crap, starts running towards him. Too late, mate. Like, goal, done.
Yeah. And I mean, the one from 55 was a bit ridiculous, to be completely honest. Like, he just goes, he takes the instant mark on the 50 and goes, oh yeah, I got this distance. And I was like, oh, most people pull kicks because they're trying to get the extra distance out of it. He just goes, like, it never looked like missing straight through the middle. I was just like, oh my gosh, like, he's just one of a kind. Absolutely amazing.
Before we get
onto the Ridley one, can we go to Global's latest one? Just
sure.
While we're talking about Daicos.
G'day there, boys.
No, the last one. How can he be stopped? Nan Curvis has a pretty good way of stopping.
No. Dogs did do a pretty good job for quarter 2. Lions did a pretty good job for 1 quarter as well. But what he has shown, Brisbane stopped him for a quarter and then he went and got, 16 touches in the third or something stupid? Like, he just absolutely racked up. Same thing there. You might stop him for a quarter. You might stop him for a brief part of the game. But and we've seen it with Tuke Miller as well, sometimes where you get attention, those who can run and keep running and outwork their opponents, they tend to, in the second half, when people get a little fatigued, they get a little tired, they start to not work as hard, then they find themselves on the outside and actually getting that ball. So I think it's hard to stop him. And if someone tags him in the midfield, he'll just push him into defense or onto the wing or into the forward line. He can play anywhere, which I think is his great strength. And the fact that he's had attention so early in his career as well, he's just going to be a freak for it. So you've seen, your Ablets or anyone else that gets tagged. Like Zerrett had to put up with it for a while. Brayshaw had to put up with it for a while. He gets tagged straight up and teams are just going, we don't actually know how to stop him. So now they try to just minimize his impact.
Yeah, I think he had only like 1 touch in the second quarter or something like that. And then he kicked 2 goals and had 8 or 9 touches in the third. Like, yeah, he just understands football, I think, is probably the easiest way to describe how he plays, is that, like, he knows where to be to get the football. He knows how to, where his teammates are, and he knows how to win. He's a winner. And he knows that, I think that also compliments him. The team knows that they're better with the ball in his hands, which helps because he's just a greedy ball hog. Like,
even last year, they called him was it the footy whisperer? As in, whatever he wanted to do with the ball is where it would go. So, hey, this guy's the footy whisperer. Or I think that's what his name was, the footy whisperer. So pretty much give him the ball and he will do good stuff with it.
His Instagram handle or something, I think it's like Whisper Daicos or something like that.
Yeah. And if you haven't seen him live, like, I haven't seen him much, but I did catch one glimpse at the Gabba when Chris was sick again. Take some vitamins. Good God, my man.
Kids, man,
but at one point he kicks the ball and he kicked it and I'm sitting there going, who the hell has he kicked that to? Like, what a crap kick. Who's he kicked that to? And then literally one of the Collingwood players just keeps on running, doesn't break stride and gets on the end of it. And I was like, holy crap. Because where I was looking at, there was no one near him. And he's pretty much like, I'm in the grandstands. He's kicked it straight towards me. And I'm like, who is this? And then literally full pelt, didn't break a stride, and I'm like, holy crap, what a great kick. Because he would have been looking this way, seen someone at the right-hand side, and then just gone, boom, nailed it.
I'm glad I went Anzac Day to actually see him play well, because he hasn't done much in the 2 games he's played the Tigers. So it's hard, and that's not sitting there going, we've all that great in that. It's just more the fact of I don't get to see a lot of Collingwood games, so I hadn't actually seen him live dominate a match. And so it wasn't until Anzac Day I was going, okay, this kid, wow, live, he's legit. And it can be the case. Like, imagine, like, you might be an interstate fan, for example. Like, you might be Collingwood Brisbane, for example. You're a Brisbane supporter, never get the chance to see Daicos play live. And that plays that one game and might have a poor game there. And you leave the ground going, well, he's not actually that good. Because that's the only one time a year you get to see him actually in the flesh.
All right, enough Daicos talk. I hate talking about Collingwood at the best of times, and it's hijacked the segment. We're just getting into it. See, look, Janko gets the idea. There's no match
Peter
Gary
will
Ablett
still
Jr.
be the second Daicos. So that I call Josh Daicos Dean, as in Dean War.
Jeez. Okay, so look, moving on.
Sidebottom's back this week, by the way, lads, just in case you're wondering. And so is Braden Maynard.
Big fan of Soddy.
Sidebottom. I'm still waiting on the Serong.
David
Still
Zeta.
nothing.
And what a champion.
Fremantle even
these
tweeted
tribunal
him.
games. Yeah.
Fremantle even tweeted him saying, "What do you do?
him a
Pretty much
shout-out.
while you're waiting," and then he sends like schnitz, pretty much, which everyone knows. I'm like, obviously you don't know him well enough if you don't know that Dave Zeta's having the schnitz while he's waiting.
I actually love that he's embraced the community. Like that is what a journalist in his position really should be doing to sort of foster that following behind him. And he's just having banter with the fans online and on Twitter, and having a joke with everything, taking all of his stride, but being accurate with his representation of data and facts. And I love that. I actually think that he's the best thing to happen to sports media in a long time. So I'm the Zeta train.
Oh, I love the Zeets. Quick summary though. So Nankervis out for 3, waiting on the Serong, whether he's suspended or overturned. Lloyd knocked out, so he will miss a week. We've also got Dunkley apparently listed as 1 week on the Brisbane Lions website, but no official word. Looks like he will miss after the injury update today. No official ruling him out, but they've put 1 week still on the injury report today. And yes, I think that's pretty much where we are at. And obviously Stewie Jew lost his job. So yeah, I know, boys. Last week I was so upset with Lloyd. I nearly brought Lloyd in, except I was kind of waiting too long. I brought in Sard, who's the cheap man's Lloyd. But I was so upset. I actually had some hot chips to think about Lloyd, Chris.
Some seagulls.
Yeah, some seagulls. Have some hot chips.
We sort of predicted that there would be more of this, and it seems to be the trend in football that a lot of players are missing with 1 or 2 week stuff because of concussion first, MRO now second, and these little niggles that just take the 1 week to freshen them up or whatever it may be. This seems to be normal now. So having trades up your sleeve just to trade for these 1 weekers is kind of shitty. And this is why we said trying to get to that 23rd premium's ideal. Making sure you have cover is also ideal. And so the holistic advice that I would share to people is if you can get to that player without impacting much of your team, then fantastic, go for it. I copped the 0 this week because I couldn't cover because I had 2 of those injuries in the same week, which is unfortunate, right? That is going to happen.
But you have Sicily coming back as well,
out, yeah. So Sicily back this week means that regardless, now I'm full primo this week. But I took the donut knowing I still had the trade, but knowing that I'd rather save that trade for a long-term injury, or like if a situation opens up, say such as George Hewitt, which is now changed my molded thinking. So for those thinking, do I trade or do I hold for these 1 weekers? I would potentially hold because there is still 7 weeks to go. And the more likely scenario is, and we've seen it every single year, is that teams like, say, a Carlton, and so let's say Carlton realize they can't make the finals, which they should have realized about 4 weeks ago. They've turned a corner. I know, it was a joke. Let's say, Carlton goes down. Walsh gets a niggle, and instead of playing through it like Walsh normally does, they go, okay, we're going to put him on ice for the rest of the year, 3 weeks out from the end of the season. That happens every single year to players, and you do not want to be left holding the bag with a 0 on your field for 3 weeks, because that is the big problem that we have moving forward. So,
and then your rank just slides week after week.
Out the window. You lose 10,000 rank or something in the last 3 weeks.
Well, remember, so not last year, the year before, when I brought in Langford instead of Aaron Hall, because Aaron Hall was an injury risk and Langford went out. I was ranked in the hundreds, like I was pretty high. So I think it was a 150, 350, and then I literally slid for those 3 weeks. I pretty much went from a high rank to then like 1,500 overall. Like it's, and that's on the high end of things. Just try and keep a trade. So if you have a donut this week and you don't have much bench cover, sure, spend those trades because you're going to have to use a trade anyway. But at least that way, if your short-term injury comes back, you have that kind of cover to actually back you up.
Corey makes a good point here with this happened in the last round a few years back where Zeeble and Stewart got injured and no one had any trades. So they just had to cop 0s, right? Now, Jay-Z is injured now. We know that. There's no chance he runs out the year with their, like, at some point they go, all right, let's just put Jay-Z on ice. Has to happen. Like, there's players like that we already have in our teams. You need to be prepared for. I'll just worry about these guys. Even guys like Sheasel. Like, is there a chance that they go, okay, let's put Sheasel on ice for the rest of the year because they're getting fucking spanked every single week? Luke Ryan, we know he's carrying something.
And Corey's profile pic, it looks like. Looks like a Zeebs.
Jay-Z?
Looks
what
like
a man.
Zeeble. Hey, Chris, you're a few more low scores from Zeba's sub and you might lose your bet.
That's true. We should have paid him out earlier. So.
I was like, hey, well, I wanted him to come on
What's
super
it,
late,
90?
not Griffin Logue.
He's like 99 or something, isn't he, at the moment?
He was, and then he had the score just gone. But I was hoping he'd come on quarter 4, not Griffin Logue, to unfortunately do an ACL. And so he'll be playing now. If Logue's out, he has to play.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, not necessarily. I mean,
who do they have?
You know who's actually surprisingly been really good is Taron Thomas. Like, I know that he's still a little bit off his game at times and his decision making is not as good as it has been, but I think he's been really, really good in that team. So, yeah, he looks huge, by the way.
He's tall.
Some size. No, like he's
bulk.
Yeah.
Well, he's been eating that prison food. He's been bulking up.
He's preparing.
What? He's on the picket diet. Come on.
Oh,
he's on the full chicken and potato salad. He's on the bulk. He's on the Stewie Doo diet. All stress. Yeah. So look, it's going to be interesting. So yeah, Global shared the same thing. He had Hall and was ranked 115, slid down to 500. So you do have to risk it for the biscuit. I mean, even Abdul, you see, he kind of risked it, and sometimes you get lucky. I mean, I know last year I had Hewitt, and I had one trade left, and I was like, I thought he might be back, and I risked it for Himmelberg, and then next minute it was like, oh, he's going to be another week Hewitt, and then by the way, he's actually not back, and then people were trying to trade and scramble if they had trades after that. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting scenario moving forward. Any other cheap options, boys, that you are looking at, or premiums that are worth paying up for if you have the trades and you're looking to sideways? Is there anyone that kind of stands out, like a Parish or just wait for Took? Is it as simple as that?
I think wait for Took is the ideal. I mean, Parish had I think his best game that I've seen him play in Essendon last week. Like I thought he was unbelievable. I know maybe it's because Merritt is playing so well that Parish is able to do what he's doing. But I thought their 1-2 punch last week was like arguably the best midfield combo that I've seen this year. Like the two players playing as good as each other in one single game. But with Parish, Parish has always been about his effectiveness with his disposal and his decision making has been poor. And I thought that he really, really stood out last week to me as that is an improvement in his game. Now, how does that work? Currently, that dynamic between those two being the 1-2, and then the third being that, the Perkins or the Hobbs or whatever that's coming in with that big grunt work is just perfect. I don't know if that is sustainable. And so I sort of temper the expectation with it. But is he cheap enough? I don't know if you can really bank on that for his price.
No, new coach too, I think will be looking at, I'd probably rather a Took based on the upside there, but I don't mind Parish if you have money to throw around. There are definitely some fairly good cheap options around, which is something you could look at. So Global said, is Dunkley a hold if you're chasing rank? I think if you're going to trade Dunkley, you should have been proactive and traded him last week, hoping it was going to be 2 or hoping it was going to be 2 plus come in soft would probably be the way I was looking at. If you held for 1 week, I think there's nothing more to gain except for probably hold another. Unless you have an injury elsewhere, I'd probably trade them over him. So are you similar, boys? If you're going to trade, you probably should have done it.
Yeah. Well, surprisingly to me, 10% of the owners, I think he was a 78% owned player. Now he's down to 68, was traded last week. And what's more surprising about that is that, sorry, I think little boy is crying. It's so sad. Sorry.
Let me continue, he says. Are you crying? Yep, let me continue.
At this point of the year, what we have is we dwindle down in terms of the frequent user base. So 10% of trades isn't necessarily a representation of how many people are actively playing the game, because 30-40% of those people may have dead teams that they haven't checked since round 1. Yeah. I think
you see it all the time. People will tweet out saying, "Oh, that's me signing out. See you next year." Or when people captained Took and he got injured, or some bad thing, and they go, "Well, that's me done. See you later." And Chris, you do it occasionally as well. Like even like this year, you don't care about draft leagues because you're doing well in standard. If you're tanking in standard, like I am, you pay a lot of attention to your draft team. Well, it's just natural.
I personally think like, I don't know about anyone else. I don't have time to think about multiple leagues, and I've got the keeper and the draft, and then this, and I don't know. I don't know how people do that, and then like Swizz. I don't know if you're doing fantasy as well, and then real dream team, and then who has time to do all of that fantasy football? I don't, and I'm a podcaster.
Well, and Swizz does Swizz is doing also the betting one that he does.
Yeah, so I do Draft Stars. So
Draft Stars goes rogue and does other podcasts with other boys.
Like, I don't really do a lot of like I have my dream team and I have my fantasy there, but I'm always been terrible at them, so I don't really do a lot. I do the NRL Supercoach because I find that easy to flick between. But again, I'm actually having a half decent year in that. But again, compared to what I do with AFL and even my draft this year, I'm finding the ones that are in my app, I'd probably concentrate more, but because I've had to join other leagues and use other emails to have those draft leagues, I don't probably concentrate as much. So it's getting to the point where I feel like outside my classic side, it probably maybe the Draft Stars, because I can choose when I want to do that. I don't have to do that each week, and maybe just the 5 draft leagues that I can get in on that app. But it does become so hard to, alternate between all of it and keep up with everything. Ooh. And Fantasy Dream Team is such a different game to Supercoach. So
they're back. Really waiting, standing by is Zeet's in the last minute. Standing by, we have verdict. So we're just waiting for them to actually make their announcement to see if the Serong is free. Surely that was he almost brought him down.
I said from a footy perspective, he deserves to get off. From a Supercoach perspective, I hope he gets a week.
Now, guys, the other one that you could look at, LDU obviously had a pretty big game this week. Now, I don't know if you could carry that injury risk this time of the season, but upcoming 3 is Hawks and Kilda West Coast before Melbourne, and then he has Essendon, Richmond, Gold Coast on the run home the last 3. So he has, let's say 4 really good matchups, 2 50-50 matchups, and a hard matchup. So LDU could go 110 on the way home pretty comfortably, and he's priced at 524 after going up 30K this week. So if you trust his body, which I don't know if anyone could, then he's a potential to go really well as well.
Oh, it's been a long deliberation too. It would be interesting. So Global as well saying like, well, if you're looking at a donut, I'd say, well, who else are you copying a donut from? Because if you have a donut from Dunkley, you would have had a donut last week. So either you have cover or you don't. And if you're missing now someone like a Ridley, then I'd probably trade Ridley over
a lot of people have Lloyd and Serong. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah, true. Or Lloyd and Dunkley. I'd be trading Lloyd over Dunkley. So I'd be going because Dunkley's going to hurt.
Well, Dunkley can go to anyone.
Well,
you can literally get any other top forward that you don't have. Whereas with the other,
how many points is he going to average more though? Lloyd might still be suffering from knocked out issues afterwards. I mean, look at what Parker did. He was a shadow of a man after he got knocked out. So, I mean, not everyone's like Ridley who comes out and starts banging out 120s after concussion.
Yeah, calves can be strange as well. LDU went 140 plus.
Oh, ban upheld. Serong is out for a week. Ban upheld. Great. He'll miss this week against
Swizz loves that decision, don't you, Swizz?
Only because I have Brayshaw and a lot of people own Serong, so yes.
OS prod, mate, get out the lube. It's brutal. That's I have him in draft. I've got Clary and Serong in draft. So if you're playing me in our draft league this week, Chris, you'll be a happy man.
Nice.
Oh man. Upheld for a week. I don't know how I sit with that. I thought he kind of brought him down on himself, but I guess the choice was he didn't actually have to bring him to ground.
This is what I said earlier in the year, is that what the AFL wants is they want you to tackle but remain standing, and like, tackling's fine as long as you don't take them to ground, which is ridiculous.
It's not the national anthem. You don't have to remain standing. It's bloody football.
This is what I'm saying. It's ridiculous what they're trying to do, but that's what they want to do. That's how they want football to get to, is that if you have the option to not take to ground, you do not. That's what they want.
Oh, he's got Baz Donks and Serong. Bloody got Corey over here giving Brayshaw. He's like, oh, that's bad about Serong, but hey, I've got Brayshaw. We don't want to hear success stories right now, Corey. People are mourning over here. Oh, wow.
Johnson's probably the real beneficiary of that, right? He probably comes in and gets all his DBAs this week.
He'll lose you that cash even quicker.
I think he's got a break even of like 84, Johnson. So
I reckon he'll make that with a better role. I think he'll be all right for that. Wow.
Well, these are the
Well,
things. So
Collingwood's the
again,
real
it's a 1 weeker,
beneficiary.
right? So if you can avoid to not trade, then great. If you've got plenty of trades, then sure. But yeah, I probably wouldn't trade if I didn't have to. And look, he probably needs a week off, so it might help him.
Oh, the foot, yeah, to help the was it the ankle or whatever he's going through?
Yeah.
I just think this is biased Victorian MRO stuff. They knew Freo were going to come and put some hurt on this week and try and beat them.
Yeah.
So I think they're just scared.
Fair enough. Now I have to go console my child, but I thank you very much, lads, for the time on, and I'm gonna bid you adieu and catch you guys later. All right.
No worries, Chris. I'll wait till you get off the line before I talk smack about you.
See you guys.
See ya, boy.
See you, mate.
Look at that. He's like a single dad already, coming in and leaving. But, oh, he's still here. Comes and goes as he pleases. OS Prod traded him out 2 weeks ago. Rich, thanks, Chris. Look at that. Must call him. We'll call you Daniel for that part there. Interesting. Yeah, so that's the issues we're at the moment. Chris obviously got a newborn. Mine's fast asleep because I am all about the routine, so I don't put up with that late bedtime stuff. Oh, it's funny. Baby's crying. It's like, oh, that looks like baby crying, and then continues. Oh, that's the parent in me coming out. Right. So, oh, yeah, Swizz, mate, you have all of the world in your hands, mate. Down in Victoria,
actually,
getting all
one,
the opportunities that I can't get in life.
Here's one from Isaac Place. It's like, hope you're well. Thinking I should move on Sheasel as he doesn't believe he's a premium anymore. Use one trade and turn him into Mills, or two trades and turn him into Sicily. He has
one
three
trade.
He has 3 trades left in total.
Yeah, but then depending on if he has another rookie that is almost ripe or soon to be ripe,
I'm going to
then
gather it's probably going to be Johnson. So I'm gathering he's thinking probably Johnson down. So you could be thinking, say, maybe a Cooper Harvey or something like that. And then Sheasel becomes Sicily, and then you've still got the one trade left.
But see, I still think Mills can go 100 to 105. And yes, I know Sicily
but then
is great.
Now, having a quick look at his team, it looks like I feel like he's got cover there. Like Sheasel would be his she's got Sheasel on field. So Sicily would come on field. And then Mills would, and this is why I like when people actually send me their team and their cash and the amount of trades, because it is easier to sort of work out. So, yeah, it depends. Like, because then Mills would possibly be a loophole player for him, by the looks of things. Where Sicily naturally on field, it's a tough one because we always talk about that points on field versus the 2 extra trades versus the ability to loophole. So there's no right or wrong answer with this. For me right now, my decision to go the extra players over your Libbers and that looks fantastic because Dunkley's out. But if there's no 1 week popular injuries, then I'm behind 10 to 15 points each week. So this is where the debate comes into it.
Depends though, but then that 10 to 15 points, can you, with that extra player, if you are fully healthy, can that loophole pick you up the 10 to 15 points? Can the extra trade pick you up more than that 10 to 15 points or whatever it might be? So it is a risky scenario because, if your loophole and, your emergency. So what happened last year, I had Will Brodie and he absolutely shut the bed. So I had Heaney, who I picked up as my loophole cover, then started banging out hundreds. So I picked up points there. So that, 45 points, whatever I picked up that 1 week was automatically better than losing a couple of points here or there for the extra premium, like the difference in premium, should I say. So it is a balancing act, and you don't know because we're not Captain Hindsight. We don't know things in advance, but I'd rather the extra trade and also having the extra premium that I can loophole. So for me, Mills is bottomed out hugely in price.
Yep.
So I'd be really keen for that. If it is Johnson, you could always wait a week, and then I'd rather pay probably $480 or $490 for for Tuke Miller if I could get away with it, because that's an extra little bit and it's not too expensive. And even then, if you have another rookie that might be going up, so like I've got Hewitt from West Coast, and he might get me to 250 in the next week or two, or even get up to like 260, 270. Can I then go from him to a Hewitt, or can I do something else with that extra 1 trade by me not going to Sicily? Or by that point, you might have an injury and then you've got the extra trade. So I'm all for aggressive, but I think if you were trying to go for a Sicily or trying to go for one of these other really top premiums, then you should have done it already. I don't know if it's worth spending all of the trade equity that you have left just to try and pick up 10 to 15 points a game and hope for some luck. So it depends on where you are, I guess. If you're outside of the top 8 in your leagues and you need to win to make the top 8, then I don't mind that scenario to try and really push it with a high premium to get maximum points early. That would make sense because you have to push the envelope to try and win. If you're close enough to the top 100 or even to win, I think Sicily would be definitely a great play because you can't be in the top 100, in my opinion, and have Sicily already in your team. So you would have lost points by holding him unless your team is that good that you've had the best cover in the world. Generally speaking, not many of the top teams will have Sicily. So if you have trades and you are trying to push the envelope to improve your rank, then a lot of top teams aren't going to have Sicily. A lot of top teams probably don't have trades to get Took. So I'd be looking at those point of difference players to really try and hope for a long run in. Swizz.
Yeah, definitely. Can you go into OzProd's latest chat?
You should be able to click on it.
Oh, yeah, I probably could actually. Yeah. Yeah, there you go.
How do I send my team?
Okay, so there's the two best ways I like it.
Go to you.
If you're on Twitter, either go to Supercoach Insider 100 or find me, follow me, Swizz26, and then just hit me up. No problems. If you're not, either go to our YouTube video either here or more likely I usually answer my own one. So if you go to my team discussion and just put your team name in there, because if you do it here, I won't remember. Put your team name in and then I can look it up that way. So there's the two easiest ways to do it. And then, if you want Ben or Chris, it's easier to go to their chat page. Though we try to look on here. If you're wanting, questions answered, I usually try my best to go through on a Thursday or Friday just to see what comments have been left on my personal video. Or a lot of the people hit me up on Twitter and that. And sometimes I don't and the one time in particular, if it's a Saturday, I know a few people try to throw me late questions on a Saturday. I'm usually playing cricket. Even in the winter. So I usually apologize. I couldn't get to it, and most people understand. But so if you're we do have lives outside, so obviously we don't spend every hour looking at that. But if you're most likely on an hour leading into maybe a game on a Thursday, maybe not in 5 minutes before, but if you were 6 p.m. shot me a question or something, I'm most likely to get the chance to get back to you.
Yep. So definitely. So Twitter for us as well. I do a little bit of commenting on the YouTube videos and that sort of stuff as well, and on Twitter. So I'm probably more active on Twitter. I don't like much of the other social media at the moment, and even Twitter with all these sponsored ads and the rest of it, I'm getting a little bit less happy. But look, I prefer it over Facebook. I'm on a little,
Are you jumping on Threads?
Nah. Even then, we joined TikTok. I call it Tok because I'm it's so trash. You got to name it twice. It's addictive. And I'm on social media a little bit more, Twitter, just looking at different feeds or trending and to try and pick up some information that way. But I don't know, I just think there's so much sponsorship and paid ads and everything's just filtering in that it's harder to get what I want. And I'm always late to the party. So, if it picks up and it starts banging off, then I'll probably get on there late. I'm not the trendsetter and go, I'm going to jump on there first. And then I'll just usually wait for it to kind of really be a thing. And then I might look at it. So I'm not that trendy, Swizz. I just kind of stick with what I like. And I usually, more on the footy chats with just mates and the rest of it. VC and C, we have touched on a little bit. So you're going with Daicos as the VC. Is that right, Swizz?
I've actually changed that because I was kind of considering Neil, but I'm thinking Daicos into Merritt might be, even though Merritt's playing Geelong. I had to see what LDU did to Geelong's midfield the other day. The best midfielders are still getting hold of Geelong. And I kind of prefer that safety. Lairds just burnt me a couple of times where I'm not.
He certainly has. Richmond, Taranto against West Coast, he pulled up a pretty good score last time they played, didn't they? They played already. And he brought out a pretty good score. I think it was like a 145. Yeah. Hopper in the side, is that going to be an issue? He hasn't been great lately, but he could bounce back. Who knows what West Coast are going to provide. For me, I actually quite like Bontempelli still. I know Sydney, they have Mills and whatever in there, but he's a big-time player. And he's generally a nice...
Richmond's midfield didn't do that great against the Swannies last week, and I think it's been a bit of a common theme. Sorry to cut you off there, but I feel like I was kind of looking through that, and Bolton was the one that got off the chain last week, but that was that half forward. Even the week before against the Cats, West Coast was a completely different story. Probably maybe you've got to go back. Maybe the Lions did do a bit of a number on the Swans, so maybe it is the best kind of midfielders like your Bonts could. So you could be on something there, but I just feel like, is there too many cooks in the kitchen in that sort of setup? Because the Swans do have a pretty good midfield. It's a hard one, but I can understand why people want to go the Thursday night.
I feel like Bont does better on a Thursday or a Friday night, to be honest. True. Like just the night games. I don't know. There's something about him where big time player. They lost last week, so I think they really do need to bounce back. And for me, he's a very safe VC. I know some people are talking about English against Hickey. You know, I mean, Nankervis got a 108 against Hickey last week. So yeah, it's an interesting scenario that you might want to weigh up. I just think Bontempelli's the highest averaging player, and then Daicos is, I think, the second highest averaging player. I could be wrong, Swizz, but I think it's the 1-2, which is why they're favourites for the Brownlow for me. I don't mind Neil as a VC because, you know, Clary's out, so it'll be, you know, Viney, Petrarca. The Petrarca played forward a lot last week to give them something different. So they relied on, I think it was like Jordan and was it Melcham and a few others kind of coming in to do the midfield roles. So they were more balanced, but also more experienced in that midfield mix. So I think with Neil in, if Dunkley's not in, it's easy. They just go wonderful, Viney, Neil, easy, and then, you know, your Ashcroft and your McCluggage will kind of get washed out with the others. Whereas if Dunkley did happen to play, then I think they'd have to bring in Petrarca into that mix because you can't leave two extremely senior big body mids in there by themselves. So Neil would be a VC for me. I wouldn't straight captain Neil necessarily against Melbourne, but Daicos is the other VC for sure. So I don't know if I'd straight see Daicos though. I mean, he hasn't been that poor, has he? I mean, and Fremantle are probably going to get opened up big time, I think, at the MCG.
Yeah, I think so. I've just joined Threads. I'm on.
Oh, see, after that, I just said I'm not a trendsetter. So what do? You go and bloody set trends on Threads, mate. It's probably hanging by a thread. I mean, I don't know much about it.
Probably is, but I'd much prefer Twitter. But let's get ahead of the game here.
Yeah, let's just make someone else some money. Hey, spread the wealth around.
That's it. Spread the wealth. Exactly.
Spread the wealth around. Yeah, Global Max Gorn been a huge
100%.
fail. I've got him in draft and I've got Briggs and I'm even thinking about trading him to someone that might need a ruck because it's just painful. And that's been the biggest reflection. So my season reflection will be very interesting. So I made some bad decisions. And then just as I started to make ground, I made another bad decision. So number one, we were talking about Dawson. Had him in the team all year. We're worried about the tag. So didn't start Dawson thinking I could get him cheap. Started Doherty instead. Huge fail. Doherty starts horrible. Dawson starts to go big. I tried to get in Dawson. Remember, my TV time was not the same time as the app time, so I got locked out of Dawson.
Oh, yeah.
And he went big with a 175, whatever. I got Stewart in, who's been okay. And I could have gone English in one trade, except I decided to get fancy and then go the whole Grundy scenario because I might be able to upgrade Callahan or someone or other, something stupid. So in the end, I went Grundy into Gorn and then stuck with Gorn, who I thought would at least go 100 to 105. Didn't even get DPP. And I can't even get rid of him. And then I started to make some ground. I missed out on, remember, Van Ruin? Oh, Van Ruin's not going to get a game. Nearly got subbed out, kicked like 3-4 goals in the last quarter. Permanent fixture, had a couple of big scores, made some money. Samson Ryan, I passed on him. I ended up going with, what was his name? Clark. Hudson Clark. What a crap last-minute decision that one was. Pretty much 60-60, sub, dropped. And so I started to make some ground, lost some there. Didn't bring in Johnson because I was like, oh, not much security there. And the big ones, so like Briggs and Sheldrick, anyone jumping on the guys have just gone absolutely huge. You kind of start to make your push. You get into about make your way back to about 4,000. You start to slide back because of a bad decision, work your way up to 4,000. And then Briggs and Sheldrick just pretty much go, and now I'm back to 5 to 5.5. So it's just been one of those years where those little decisions where if I went English like I wanted to, pre-season, I had English number one, and I said the issue was his body, but I said he is the number one, has the potential to average the most as a ruck, and instead I went Wits like an idiot. So, yeah, little decisions, which I'm sure we have all done, the 50-cent coin, the flip of the coin, and the sub scenario on are they best 22, are they sub, they have been sub, like Sheldrick, they have been sub, but now they're in the best 22, are they going to hold their spot? It's definitely a difficult year to kind of navigate around. So, but yeah, you and Chris have been doing well. Looks like top 1,000 for the both of you, I reckon.
Yeah, well, that's always the aim. So we'll see how that plays out. Anything can change in these last few weeks. To the one above, which is NJ03. Yeah, no, I completely agree. If you can turn Matt Johnson into LDU, do that. Cover Serong for this week, becomes your M8 and M9, I think you've said. Himmelberg F7D7, 100% get on that train, mate.
But if you've also got, if you can afford Matt Johnson to LDU, and he's your cover for Serong, then you could almost afford to play Matt Johnson because he'll get a better role with Serong out and then spend the exact same amount of money to then get in Tuke Miller. So would you rather Johnson for 1 week and Tuke, or would you rather just LDU straight up?
I'd probably LDU straight up, maybe. The only problem is I want to know
which LDU are we getting? That's the issue.
Well,
Tuke's a bit more consistent.
But they do have some games where he can, because they do play Hawthorn and West Coast still. So I don't know. I don't mind that. And then Tuke, my worry is, like, he did play forward last week. He's coming back from a long-term injury. If they lose again this week, which I think they're a good chance of beating the Saints, that whole coach change and everything. But I don't know what's King going to do, because Stuart Yu was saying, Tuke, yeah, you might play that kind of role that Walsh was playing, come off half forward, come in and get involved from there. Well, because why would we want to change up Rowell and Anderson, and then we've got Humphrey and Flanders and these guys doing such a great job for us? So, I don't know.
It's interesting. And people talking about Constable. Constable kind of got screwed a little bit because, he was playing in defense and they had those injury issues, so they played him in defense and he had a couple. Wasn't the best disposal efficiency, so they go, okay, and then they went him back to get some confidence. Then what happened is, Tuke went down. They started to have some issues in that midfield, so they actually changed his role. And he went back and he was playing in the VFL, but let's play you midfield to try and now quickly get you up to speed so we can have depth in the midfield. And then all of a sudden, so the defenders are there, and then he doesn't get a gig in the midfield either. And now you have, Humphreys overtaking him and whatever's going on. But they've pretty much just thrown him around and gone, oh, okay, so you were a midfielder drafted. We'll train you all on the backside, back flank, etc., and to work in defense. Oh, we need you now to start training in the midfield, and they've just screwed him up. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the new coach does as far as game plan and positions where people are going to play. If he simplifies it or changes anything, we saw what happened. Himmelberg, the coach is like, oh, let's throw Himmelberg back into defense, and next minute kills it. So it is going to be a little bit of data that we need to collect. We've seen it with even a simple, subtle changes like North Melbourne with Clarko gone. You saw, Sheasel role change a little bit, and Zeeble changed a little bit. The changes that have come in there. You also look at Richmond. Richmond have then gone and tried to maybe have a little bit more control as they move it forward, and then try and keep it there and play dynamic once it hits the ground. So there are subtle changes everywhere, because you don't just get a coaching gig and go, oh, we're going to play the exact same way. It's like, hey, things aren't going well. Wonderful. I've got this little chance in this little window to take ownership and do the things that I've been kind of asking for him to do, but he won't do, or I have been afraid to ask. And now you go, right, this is my team. Let's try this. Because guaranteed they're trying to win. They're trying to put their best foot forward. It's like a free job interview where you get this little window to go, right, if I was to have this team, this is what I would do. So things change. It's going to be interesting. Who's the next Harry Himmelberg? Who's the next, whoever that we've been looking at, Swizz? So it's going to be an interesting scenario. West Coast probably have to hold their coach now, Swizz, or do they get in the running for Hardwick? Surely you wouldn't get a West Coast over the Gold Coast.
I don't think they're in the running for Hardwick. But like Hardwick's not going there over the Suns.
No, that's what I mean. The Suns, you've got potential of finals. They got a good
we had this debate the other day on the footy chat on footy cast, and long chat about this, where I'm very much like, what are they going to gain, and who are they going to actually get? Who wants to come and coach a team who still hasn't hit rock bottom yet? So you're always going to have somebody throw their hand up, but it's not going to be the coach that you want. So you may as well, if you're paying Simpson all that money anyway, you may as well just stick with him for now. Stick for him for another 12 months. Where then I know other people were saying, I think Damo from Hawk Talk was pretty well like, if he's got issues with the senior players, that's going to filter down to these new players that you're coming in. So you may as well just get a clean start. And if that's Uze's opportunity to coach or somebody like that, they're not going to turn that down. So do they go
get rid of the stain? If the stain ain't brushing out and the stain is still lingering, then change the bloody carpet and kick him out. So if the seniors are the issue,
Yeah.
it's one or the other.
Yeah,
So
well,
it's
it's one or
either
the
the
other,
seniors
isn't it?
aren't
Of
implementing
course it
and they're
is.
not standing up. It's one or the
Yeah.
other. Either
And then
they
it's
go or I go.
how hard do you cut deep, deep with their list, which I don't mind. I think they're going to get belted anyway. And their senior guys, like Gaff had another 6 touches on the weekend. Like they've got senior guys who can't even get near the ball. So
Don't even notice Gaff out there anymore. And he used to
has there
stand
been
out.
a bigger fall? And that's one for our listeners. Can anybody think of a bigger fall of Grays?
Oh, so I did say Gresham because Gresham was probably more impactful last year, whereas I guess Gaff wasn't great, but he was a really good outside accumulator.
What is Gaff price in Supercoach?
It's low. It's 270, 250.
Is it even that high?
Yeah, I think so.
He must have had one decent game in there.
No, probably not.
No, it is. It's 296.
Yep.
290. And this is his recent score. Oh, because he had the 85 against St Kilda would have bumped him up. But he's because he started the year all right. He went 101, 87, 93, 98, then the 42, the 103. But pretty well since the Hawks game. He's gone 25, 34, 77, 49, 47, 85, and 34. That's from one of your senior guys. And that includes, like, he's had 4 touches on the weekend. He had another game where he had 10 touches. 6 touches on the weekend. And another game, 10 touches. How do you play for a whole game? Because he wasn't subbed off. How do you play a whole game and get 6 touches?
When did he have?
I know Kelly did that, but Kelly got
fracture?
a hard.
Didn't he have like a stress on the issue? Didn't he get a stress issue?
How does Josh Kelly have 6 touches in a game? Any Josh Kelly owners out there?
That was a really good tag.
That was awesome.
Really good tag,
mate. But I think Kane Gorn said on the weekend, I might have been listening to him today. It's like, how do in this modern day, if you're Josh Kelly, not run down to defense and get a cheap kick out of defense just to get yourself going? The old 1-2, chip it to the back pocket, get the handball receive, go kick the ball up to halfback, just to get going that way.
That was an old-fashioned tag, though, because even on a ball up in the pocket, Kelly's trying to run and be mobile, and literally...
that's what I'm saying. So you go down and take a kick out, don't you? And change it up completely. There, you take the kick out, get the run through. There's different ways.
Stats. That's your solution. Pad your stats with useless...
But some of these players, that's how it gets them in the game. Like you get that 1-2, get going with that, and but you're changing up because then he can't tag him at that point. So maybe he gets a block on from somebody. Somebody blocks him as he's
that's my issue.
Pass, he gets going.
So one of it is he didn't work to be able to get some of the easier possessions to build himself into the game. He just pretty much went. But, so even when the ball was thrown up, basically, right, he didn't even look. So the opponent, what was the opponent's name again? Bloody
McGuinness.
McGuinness didn't even look at the ball. He just pretty much smothered Kelly. That was his role. Watch Kelly, follow Kelly, smother Kelly, make sure Kelly doesn't have the ball. Now, I have an issue with the GWS players because as a good teammate, if someone is getting harassed like that and they're not having a good day, right, your job is to then try and put some hits on and put some blocks on to free up some space to help your teammate because he's a good user and he has good damage. Not just sit there and go, oh, that's wonderful. He's getting tagged today, more for me. I thought it was very selfish.
Well,
right, they're lucky they won, but they focused on themselves. Like Green and Cornelia going, yeehaw, I'm not getting attention. Let me get the ball instead of actually trying to help your teammate.
From a Supercoach perspective, we were actually just giving advice about bringing LDU because he is playing the Hawks this week. Does that mean McGuinness goes straight to LDU and does not give him anything this weekend?
That was an old-fashioned tag.
Yeah, could the old-fashioned tag. So, and that might be one because he's one of the very few old-fashioned taggers still in the league. So that's North Melbourne LDU this week. It's probably Taranto the week after. Saints, it'll be either Still or Crouch. The Collingwood game will be interesting. Do they send him to Daicos? And can Daicos just burn him like he's been burning everyone else? Or is McGuinness, because Kelly's a good mover through the ground. But I feel like Daicos would work harder, but that'll get real interesting. There.
I also think if you're getting tagged, just put him in the goal square. Because you can't hold, forwards get a lot more free kicks because people hold, etc. So you can't just do the exact same thing that you do everywhere else on the ground. So if you're playing in the forward pocket and they're like in the full forward, in the goal square, there's no one around. So as soon as that ball comes in, they can't tag you the same way because any defender, if they hold you, if they try and push you off it or they try and do all these things, you're going to get a free kick. So it's almost like, okay, well, if you want to do that, no worries. Well, I'm just going to rest in the forward line. Yes, if there's a centre bounce, maybe try and get in there with all of the congestion and try and win the ball and take some blocks and the rest of it. But outside of that, do the dusty, push forward, and either lead up and try and get a free kick or try and negate it that way. So
the other one,
Daicos will be interesting.
The one sometimes other teams do, they throw them in the ruck, but don't get them up to into the contest. So they go and rove to the. But if you're let's just say it was Kelly. So Kelly goes up against Hawks ruck last week. Let the Hawks ruck tap it, but McGuinness can't tag him at that point. So
until
he can just run off. Yeah,
until he hits the ground.
So he can just run off, and it's like I can put 5-10 meters on this guy and just rove to the opposition ruckman.
Yeah, because he can't
touch me.
That's actually pretty good. The Caleb Daniel.
I've seen a couple of the Blues have done that a couple of times with Paddy Cripps, and he just stands there and then just goes, "I'm going to get this ball."
You can't touch me. Once he gets it, he goes, "I'll just out muscle you." I don't mind that at all. But yeah, so global. No one talking about Kelly, so I think there's definitely some stuff there. West Coast rule. Gaff hasn't been the same since he hit Brayshaw. Bit of natural justice, Swizz. Natural justice.
Yeah, well, the justice was not obviously playing with the premiership, but yeah, I know that's always been a big talking point. That one. It was just the most bizarre
So 4 from Grace. You've got, let's say, Gaff. We've got, I think, if you take out his last week, Gresham, I think, has been really poor as far as previous standards. Hewitt is poor enough to be sub. At least the other boys are playing.
And Will Brody this year as well, because that's my draft. Hewitt and Brody, like 4th and 5th round. I'm like, you beauty. Oh wow!
And people thought he was going to be, he'll improve time on ground or he'll score more with a little bit of time on ground in the preseason. Horrible pick. Actually, that's a 4 from Grace, if I've seen one. But he wasn't really best 22 until last year, so is it really his fault?
Yeah, but he went to Freo like that. That was his first year there. But it's at the same time, it was like, what the hell? Like this guy. Actually, I'm trying to see if I can actually sort.
And Dylan Shield, I guess, as well to a lesser extent. But I think Gresham for me. I think with Owens has just stood up and Gresham is now just taken a back seat. So maybe he just doesn't want to be there. So it's going to be very, very, very interesting.
A lot of talk about the Blues being interested there. We talked about before, like Dylan Shield. Well, actually, the one on the weekend, which was interesting, was Ben King. Imagine being he'd be one of their highest paid players, if not their highest paid player, and getting subbed off.
Didn't he have one touch or something though? Got one touch and then subbed at 3 in the third quarter.
Yeah, and it was a dirty night, and it happens as a key forward sometimes. But to be actually subbed off. One of your boys, Jared Lyons, he had not as much this year, but compared to what he was doing a couple of years ago, he was absolutely carving up in that midfield.
We spoke about him. So mates and myself were talking about it at the game for Jared Lyons. So the issue with Jared Lyons, it isn't necessarily Jared Lyons himself, but Dunkley's inclusion. So now you've got someone who can, Lyons was contested ball inside mid, but he's slower, he's older, and he's not as tall and explosive as Dunkley. So you can't have him in the same midfield. You can't go Neil, Dunkley, and Lyons, because you have Dunkley, who is everything. Neil, who's a really good all-rounder as well, can get it inside, but also a good kick. And then you've got your explosive types like your McCluggage, you've got your Zach Baileys, you've got Ashcroft. So unfortunately, Lyons has gone from being a really good 115 averaging Supercoach player in the midfield to now Dunkley's pushed him out, and then Ashcroft as well is coming and taking minutes. You just can't play him. So I thought it was good that he got a game. If there was a team that needed an inside mid, they could probably definitely shop for him. He would probably be a great asset at another club, I think. So it's a little bit interesting as far as that goes. Now, speaking on the King thing, though, it's really interesting that King gets subbed, right, in the third quarter, and he must have some pull, because what's happened is literally the next minute the coach gets fired, and then who's the coach? Who's the coach? Senior King is the coach. Yeah. So he's like, I'll call Daddy. I'll call Daddy. He will get you fired, and then I will play next week.
Somebody, I don't think they're related anyway, but somebody messaged me that today. It's like, is King the first player coach since like whoever it was back in the 1980s and that? I'm like, no, it's a different King. It's a different King, mate. It's just they're not putting Ben King on as coach. It's funny. That'd be the most Gold Coast thing to do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do anyway.
Global, actually, I was going to say that anyone look at Brody? No, not as an inside mid. Tigers, where's the real rebuild? Tigers rebuild at? Where the Tigers at? Well, if they, who we got next 2 weeks, West Coast Hawthorn, if we win them, it's season's still on the lot, like there. Depending on what coach we bring in, which McWalter is, I guess, warming into that. The Tigers are still up to their ear in getting Himmelberg. So it doesn't look like they're going, well, I sit there and say not going draft-wise, but they are trying to trade with Gold Coast to get their first-round pick. Now, is that because there's a player they're looking at in the top 10, or is that because they need that player so they can trade to get another high name, big name in? That's so I feel
right.
like
So whether they need the 2 trades, but they don't have they're probably trying to get back
free
into that
agent.
first year.
Yeah, so they don't have the first round pick at the moment.
Yep.
But it looks like the Tigers are talking with the Suns, because the Suns don't need the first round pick, they need points. So
Correct.
apparently Richmond is looking at bunching enough points together, which will get them more than what the Suns have at the moment. And then Richmond take their first round pick off them, which I think is currently pick 7 off the top of my head. And then 1, 2,
and if
3,
if
4,
Tigers
5,
get a
6.
first round pick, they're then able to
6,
sell
pick
their
6.
future first on as well, aren't they? Because if you can't go, I'm going to sell my future first and then literally sell my future first again. They have to at least take one within a certain window.
Every 4 years. So I think we used it the year before. So I think they still might be fine. You got to use a certain amount over a 4-year period. Can't remember if it's 1 or 2. I think it could be 2. So maybe they can't for next year unless they're trading back in. So I think that's a case of but definitely they could go and trade for the Gold Coast one by selling off second round picks and future seconds and whatever to get them enough points.
Gold Coast are cheering. They are, I know they wanted to play finals, but the silver lining is that they are not playing finals, because if you play finals and you make the top 8 and whatever, I think it's top 8 or you play the prelim or you win, or even just the top 8. Don't quote me on this specifically, but I do know if you make the finals and you have academy prospects, etc., you can only take 2, right? So they actually put a handbrake or a handcuff your limits to actually buy your academy players. If you make the top 8, there's a limit. So the fact that they haven't made the 8 means that they have 3 players that are all meant to be first round picks, and they will then get access to all 3 of them because they didn't make finals. So that's why they're trying to accumulate all these points. They've got pretty much the best key forward since the King brothers, but I'm like, he's built like a key forward. He's mobile. He actually ran down and tackled somebody on the wing as well. Plays extremely. He's a big boy who's mobile, who's fit, and he's absolutely dominant. So they reckon he'll be the number 2 pick or rival number 1 if there was such a thing. And then you've got another 2 players. One plays like Dion Prestia, apparently, a little bit smaller, inside mid sort of nugget. But all 3 of these players are meant to be top first round picks, and 2 of them in the top 10 apparently. So then 1 still in that first round. So Gold Coast, whoever that coach is, they just go, wonderful. We've got kind of like Brisbane. You go, hey, we've got the best pick in the league, but we'll just rack up some points. And I've seen a few people actually get upset by the fact that the Suns are able to get academy pick. Oh, scrap the academy, scrap the academy. Yeah. I'm like, mate, the Suns have been horrible. And now what? Finally, all of the work, all the investment that's coming up in here into the Brisbane Lions Academy, into the Gold Coast Academy, and now people are having an issue with it. I just find it really funny, the fact that they just happen to have 3 good players.
That's the thing. Everybody's like, yeah, these are fine as long as they're picks 20 to 50. You can have all of them. No one cares. But the fact that they've actually, and this is the thing, because the academies, you spend so much time developing these players, you're more likely to actually get, better players out of it.
And take them as well.
I think that'll be interesting to see if Richmond. Yeah, I think if Richmond they're doing that too because they've got their eye on some player that's going to be top 10, or if they are trying to make another big move and not only try to get Himmelberg in, which is Sydney, Essendon, and I think there's one other club in the race for him, and instead of somebody else, because clearly they need a key forward. Because Lynch has got his injury issues, and then Jack Rios.
Do you reckon Himmelberg's going forward though?
Well,
I reckon they're playing him defense because his collateral is in defense.
Guess depends what club and who's looking for it. Because is Sydney getting him to play defense because they think the McGardens, especially Paddy, is done, or is it because Buddy's? They need a Buddy replacement.
No, I think you got your Logan and a few others that they can probably develop more. I think the
Essendon,
tall intercepting defenders are harder to, in my opinion, get at the moment. I know key forwards. He's not a key forward anyway. He's more of the third forward, like your Gunston type for me, or not really second, but more of the third. Whereas he could be the number 1 intercepting defender.
Doesn't Essendon already have two players like that in Ridley and Redmond? So it's interesting.
Yeah.
What are the Bombers talking to him about?
Bombers would be forward, probably.
Yeah.
Richmond would probably be forward because they've got quite a few good interceptors as well. Sydney, in my opinion, would have to be defense, just because that's where they're lacking. They're lacking a lot. I mean, Rampy's great, but he's old. He's not that tall. He plays tall, and it'd be interesting. So for me as well, and I think
other one,
his value as well in defense, it's like, hey, he was absolutely dominant in defense. So I find his value attributed to that role would be higher than if you sold him as a forward.
The other one just about draft, and I guess this will be very interesting when it first like Supercoach prices for next year. I think they've got 3 of them. The Allies just won the under-18s championship, and usually they only win 1 game a year. They've absolutely dominated the competition this year. They've got 3 Tassie boys down there who have absolutely carved up for it. With Tasmania due in what, 5 years? So these kids are going to be 23 in their prime, and the AFL is going to do everything to get there. If these kids turn out as well as they are, going to want them playing for that first Tassie team.
Yep.
If you're an AFL club who's in them, and now these guys are probably ranged between, say, maybe pick 10 through to maybe 25. Are you going at them and hoping that you can convince them to stay, knowing that this team is coming in within 5 years' time? And the
AFL a gamble, isn't it?
It is, because the AFL are going to do everything they can to get and I know a few people are like, oh, it's not all about them getting the local talent, but these 3 kids are going to be in their prime and 3 of the better players running around the competition at that
and
stage.
they want them to start well, unlike some of the others. So if you can get some experienced players to come in that'll be willing to play for them, but also if you can get local talent, because they're not going to leave as far as Tasmania. So
and they would be the face of like Tasmania, because we know what the AFL did with like Carmichael and Izzy and paid them those bonuses. What are they going to do for 3 actual gun AFL players? Well, hopefully gun if their career projections go as we hope. But it'll be at least, they might have 60 to 80 games under their belt coming into the brand new team to go back home. It is a risk for a club. And
because either you're going to get value from it or you're not. So either they're going to pay up for the price, they're going to develop them, and then they're going to leave and they're going to get shafted. Or when they leave, because Tasmania will have so many draft picks, they might actually get well compensated, and the AFL might actually make it happen by making sure that they are well compensated. So it'll go one way or the other. You'll either pay for them, you'll develop them. It's called, you buy a cow, you fatten it up, and you hope to get paid off well at the auction, but you may or may not. So it's a risk.
We have no framework, because the AFL might just turn around and say you can come out and poach a player from each club. So we don't know what they're going to do. So those clubs might not get the compensation that they deserve out of that. That like Global, that's an interesting. He's got a contract on the table.
Why would he resign though?
He's going to sign it. Like, I thought he was the obvious one to head maybe down to Geelong, because they needed that inside midfielder.
That's where he's from. Any more players in Geelong.
Yeah, I know, but that was the obvious one. Danger Aging and Duncan and all those guys. So he goes in there. Even Guthrie, I think they're all like 30 plus. But it looks like the better offer is at Essendon, so he's going to be staying. Redmond's the real interesting one, because the most Bomber supporters you talk to, want to keep both, but everyone's like, we've got to keep Redmond. There's just no doubt about that one, where you can't let like Parrish, if he goes, well, we've still got Hobbs and Perkins and Merritt and all these other Caldwell that can play through there. So he's not as big of a loss compared to Redmond.
Well, you say that he's not as big of a loss on a hopeful hypothetical that they will fill their boots and fill his shoes. That's the risk you take. Oh, we've got depth here, so we'll trade out someone with currency. But then there's no guarantee that person will actually fill those shoes. Whereas you've got someone who can really pick up a contested ball, and you could structure everyone else around him. Merritt complements him well. He complements Merritt at this point, I believe. So that's the argument and scenario we're going to have. But he will have to do the team thing for success, and I don't think he will get max value if he stays.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, you leave him, let him go now. You could, like, for Geelong, it's going to be a later first round pick anyway. You could probably do that. And if you're the Bombers, who apparently got all this money to spend, up to maybe $2 million, do you then go out and make a play for what exactly you need, which is Larkey, Oscar Allen, Ben King? Like, they need a key forward back. They need a key back and a key forward. So wouldn't it be like you could go free up that Parish money and go out and get exactly what you need? that would make more sense. And I'd throw, especially with King with the change of coach, let's say it's not Dimmer, or it's or Oscar Allen at the moment, which West Coast would probably never let go unless you could get the Godfather offer. But you've got to try. That's what they need. They're like, we know Peter Wright's doing a job down there, but outside of Langford, they're really struggling again with that forward position. So
yeah, they do need someone. It'll be painful though, because Essendon lost draft picks though. Yeah, so Parrish was the draft pick that pretty much played that whole season that most of the team were wiped out.
Like that was McGrath. McGrath it might be Parrish
because I think Parrish played. He was the first year
still there.
Parrish played. Merritt played and dominated because he went straight into the midfield. Parrish was a first-year player. Parrish and Mills.
McGrath came from it afterwards.
Yeah, because I remember starting Parrish and Mills that year as rookies, and then I think they lost their draft picks or whatever after that for the year after. So it'd be also kind of sad the fact that they had the drug saga and whatever it was, all right? And he pretty much played his first year during that mess, and then all of a sudden they leave, and they'll leave a talent gap behind him as well, in my opinion. So that him leaving will actually set them back.
Yeah, could, but it depends what you get in for that. It's no different like we set them in Supercoach. You trade this player out and get this player in, and does it offset? Might work out, might not.
Yeah, I actually tried to work out myself. If I give up Ashcroft, and what else would I have to give up to get Daicos in a keeper league? It'd have to be a lot.
And I said this, and I know we haven't had a chat. I talked about this last week on the pod. If you do keeper leagues and you are not in contention right now, this is the time where you be trying to get out rookie players or young guns and trying to trade for your senior stars to help try to people win the premiership. So in Ben's situation last year, he was trying to win the flag. So he might be trying to get some guys who are 27, 28, 29 to make sure he wins that flag. But now Ben's in the case where he's in a rebuild. He'd be trying to eye off 19, 20, 21-year-olds if it means helping somebody else win a flag.
Correct. So case in point, Jeremy Cameron was starting off on a heater this year. The guy who, Grimo, who had a top 1, top 2 side, I sold him Jeremy Cameron for his first round pick. Right. So that wins out in my favor, especially now that Jeremy Cameron's kind of slid off a little bit. The same kind of scenario goes where, I'm in a rebuild and we actually work out our teams at this just before the season starts. So I'm literally loading up with as much young potential talent as I can because I can just sit on them. I can watch them for a whole preseason. I got Sheldrick, a few others off the waiver where I'm just throwing all of these potential players in my team. I can watch them all preseason, see if any of the cream's going to come up. That then also increases my trade bait because we actually trade live picks. So I can then trade them out and improve my draft rank. I can sit on them. I can work out who I want and who has collateral or who has worth, and then do it that way. Same thing with draft leagues that are single season. You go in and go, okay, so I've done this a couple of times. We had, Tuke was out, Sicily was out, so LDU was out for these periods. Parrish or whoever it was. So if there are people out at the moment, let's just say Dunkley was out for 2 weeks, or let's say Serong's out, and the person that owns Serong needs to win this week and next week or whatever, or needs to win this week to make the draft finals. So, hey, mate, pressure's on. You need to win this week in order to make finals. Let me buy Serong off you. And then you can give them give them good value or whatever. Offer them a 2-for-1. I'll give you 2 players to cover your 2 players. And generally how I do it, and it's worked out well, which is why I kind of hate the draft expert on YouTube and fantasy football. So he's really good at it as well. Tries to offer the old 2-for-1s. So I offer 2-for-1. I think I offered, so with Chris, I offered Ollie Wines and Darcy Cameron for LDU. And then with that one player, I said, give me whoever you don't want. That one player I got. I watched the waiver. Dylan Moore from the Hawks came up. I grabbed him. Or Zorko came up. I grabbed him. Briggs came up. I grabbed him. But if you have your team so thinly spread, you can't actually grab some of those waiver options when they arise, or when someone preemptively drops a premium they shouldn't because your team's already maxed out. So offer them a 2-for-1. I offered someone for Sicily when he wasn't there. It didn't work out on that one, but I did get a trade on for somebody else where they had someone that was missing for a couple of weeks. I could afford to cop some donuts for that person within that time frame, and then I was able to upgrade. So that is pretty much fan cast member. Hey, how dare you?
I
How dare
love
you,
that. Thanks,
Megar?
bro. Thank you for watching both.
Bless ya. We're in an open relationship. We're letting
Yeah.
Swizz dabble a little bit and put his fingers in a few pies, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm talking about that. I didn't mention it before. August 4th, we've got the Supercoach get together at the pub at Crown. So I think that'll be kicking off. I feel like it's 5:30 or 6 p.m., but we'll have more details about that. So Heath, Shaw, myself, a few other big names in the Supercoach world. We'll get in there. Yeah, and Fancast AFL, we just put up our latest video talking footy. Pretty well what Ben and I are doing now, because obviously we talk a lot more Supercoach. But yeah, now we've got the
we have got off
footy
track
podcast
a little.
going. That to Travis, yes, and we've talked this in a bit of trade chat. So thanks you for those who have stuck around. The Lions are chasing Dodie, so are the Bombers.
Interesting.
They seem to be the two clubs that
intercepting defender. I guess we
feel like I've
another.
heard some talk about the Swans as well, but I can't remember. No, Swans are into Barras. So Sydney are into Barras, but yes, Brisbane are into Dodie. But the thing is, I think Dodie is missing half a year next year, still coming back from that knee injury. I think he is. So yeah,
he'll still be on his way back in.
Yeah. But that makes more sense maybe for the Lions, because they've naturally built their team to not just have a run of it last year, this year. You don't bring in Dunkleys and your Danahers and these guys not to try to win a flag, and they'll still be in the window next year.
Yeah, especially with the natural development as well. I think the fact that they're playing some of these young guys now with the more run and spread, because they were a little bit slow, I think, through the midfield last year. But I am looking forward to it. I think the Lions have still got another couple of years within that window. Zorko's not everything he was at that point, so a lot of it is now rebuilt around that depth. And we have some really good players in the VFL that aren't even getting a gig at the moment. So that's where our depth is really strong. And the fact that you have your Wilmots, your Fletchers, your Lohman, and a few of these other guys coming through to actually do a role. Sharps had a little bit of exposure. They're not being rushed in like some of these other lower teams where we have pretty good depth across the board at the moment. And Robertson, I hope we keep Robertson, but I think West Coast should be throwing everything at him, because he's someone that could actually play inside mid and do well for West Coast, in my opinion. Final thoughts, Swizz?
Yeah, no, it was good. As we said, if you want to contact us, we've got the Twitter there. Otherwise, watch our videos and just maybe comment your team name. We'll do our best to sit there and talk it through. But yeah, there's a lot going on. We still don't even know about Lloyd. Like, it should be the 10-day concussion protocols.
Yeah, should miss 1 week, hopefully.
Miss 1 week. So you've got people dealing with that. People are dealing with now Serong, Dunkley. So this is where the whole debate comes down. Ridley, of how many trades do you leave for this time of year? These 1 week injuries. Do you set your team up trying to go the top premiums versus having the cover? And how much rookie cover do you need, or premium cover on there? So I think this round is really there's a big opportunity to change ranks. And some people are sitting there going, well, should I trade Dunkley? And this is what I put out a couple of weeks ago. What's he still? 685? Like, this might be the opportunity to get aggressive. Now, if you can cover him naturally, you want to keep him. But if you are trying to cover other sections, there's the opportunity for somebody like him and maybe like a Sheasel, turn them into 2 players or whoever, and you could get a real big rankings boost this week. So this is we always the moving week. They talk it was it the third day in the golf? This is moving day. I think this round's the moving week for Supercoach, because there's so much carnage going around. We're going to see rankings change dramatically.
Yeah, and there's some mids that have dropped as well. So I mean, you could go Sheasel up to a Sicily, and go Dunkley into any of your sort of Mills, Took, or a whole range of LDU sort of range, depending on if you have any cash. So I'd rather Sicily and Took over Dunkley not playing and a Lloyd not playing. So it just depends. So to summarize that, basically, if you are copying a donut this week and your bench is thin, or you have really bad rookies, then if you're going to spend a trade, you might as well try it. If you can avoid losing that player and upgrade around them, then that way when they come back, you've then got that flexibility. Otherwise, if you trade them, you're always trading them, especially with these soft 1 week suspensions or concussions as well, is also a real issue that we have, where they'll miss a week, and that cover does come in handy more than any other year. So if you have no rookies on the bench and you have no equity, then you might just have to try and trade that player, and that's where a Dunkley can maybe get you some use 2 trades to get 2 players on that split. Otherwise, I am very much in favor of keeping draft, so keeping some of your picks and your trades, where possible. It just depends. So if you are desperate, then you have to risk it. If you can avoid it, then avoid it. And if you are healthy, then this could actually be the week to sit pretty while everyone else is forced to change. Because if they have more danger or more issues next week, they're just going to have spent their last trades this week to fix their team. And then next week, you could be the one to actually move ahead with the trades that they don't have. So whatever it is and whatever you are doing, please back your gut. And just remember, not many of you own Max Gorn, so it can't get much worse.
And remember, this advice is for we're talking about overall. But if you're a head-to-head league player, have a look at where you are on the ladder. If you need to win this week, make those trades. If you can hold on, if you're entrenched in your top 4, I did laugh at that. Good on you, Global. If you are and you can cop a loss, then save it, because that's going to serve you better come Supercoach finals. So it all depends on your position. But beautiful.
Wonderful.
Always
Thank
good chatting to you,
for
Benny
joining
boy.
us, sticking around. That was a good little footy chat as well. I think we went a nice little 40 minutes of just whatever. I liked it. I did enjoy. So let us know what you're thinking. Let us know who you're VCing and seeing this week. Are you going with Daicos like Swizz or something? Are you going with like a Bont and Pelly like myself?
Luke Ryan might get the
Luke
the VC
Ryan,
now.
Lockie Neal. Who's your money on? You have a full team of premiums, hopefully, so you have a lot of people to choose from. But whatever you do, back yourself in and don't look back. And if it goes wrong, blame Chris, because he's not here.
Exactly. Blame Chris.
That's it. We'll talk to you soon, guys. Alrighty. Bye.